I'm Kate and welcome to my channel. So it is officially spring, even though it's still like pretty cold here in Minnesota. I had like one day hit the 60s and now it's back to being cold and a little snowy, but nonetheless, it is spring. So what better time to talk about spring palettes than now? So I have a pretty big eyeshadow palette collection and a lot of those are really beautiful spring soft shades. When I think of spring eyeshadow, I think of really beautiful pastels, soft shimmers, kind of more soft pink tone neutrals. So I have a whole bunch that I'm going to share today. First up is one of my current favorite brands, and it is Nomad Cosmetics. This is their Tokyo palette. Look at how springy this is. All these beautiful pastel shades. The shimmers down here are stunning. They're very much like topper shades. I will often pair this bottom row with another neutral palette just to get a soft sparkle. Really good variety in this palette, and Nomad's formula is unbeatable. This is just a perfect spring palette. On the more neutral spectrum, I have from Viseart. This is the Paris Edit. To me, this is a very like spring neutrals palette. You have some really soft pinky shades, some neutrals in there. The shimmers are beautiful. Viseart has some of the best matte shadows that I've ever tried, and this is just a really pretty soft palette. Next up from I Heart Revolution, this is the Mini Tasty Peach. This palette is beautiful. It's nice, small, compact, super affordable. I think this was under $10. Just some pretty peachy coral mattes. The shimmers are really beautiful. I mean, it's really little. They have a couple others in this size that are really nice. I don't typically like I Heart Revolution's eyeshadows, but I've really enjoyed this palette. I'm gonna dive into all of my springy Colourpop palettes next. I have quite a few. But first up, from kind of their monochromatic 9-pan, I have a couple. So first up is the Lilac You a Lot. So again, very soft pastel, kind of pinky lavenders, a couple deeper shades to deepen things up. I don't do a lot of purple, but when I do, this is definitely one of the palettes that I grab for. One of my favorite, kind of an unexpected favorite from Colourpop, the Mint to Be palette. I hadn't really done any mint shadows before picking up this palette, and now I use greens and mint pretty often. I like that there's kind of this olivey tone to blend things out with, but the soft mint shadows are beautiful. The shimmers in here are also really pretty. And another 9-pan from Colourpop, this is the Aura and Out palette. So just a little more variety with the spring tones. You have kind of these kind of creamsicle shades, some really pretty soft greens and mints again. This kind of robin's egg blue is really pretty. You have a white matte shadow. This isn't a palette that I'll reach for on its own very often, but I pair it with other things quite a bit when I need something lighter and softer to blend other shades out with. All right, the first ever Colourpop palette that I picked up was Sweet Talk. I think I saw Raw Beauty Kristi use it, and I had never heard of Colourpop, and I just thought it was so pretty, and I picked it up, and it's gotten a lot of love. I have quite a few dips in different shadows. It has a really nice Super Shock shadow in here, but again, really pretty kind of pinky coral salmon shades that I think are great for spring. It's just a really pretty little palette. All right, for what I'm wearing on my eyes today, I am wearing a Colourpop palette, and this is the Sailor Moon palette, the Pretty Guardian. Now, this is not one that I picked up initially. I picked it up after the fact in a sale. I'm really glad I did. Just a really fun variety of mattes in kind of tones that I didn't have before. I don't love that a lot of their mattes in this palette have glitter in them. When I blend them out, the glitter just goes away anyway, so I don't really see the point in that. But I did use all three of these mattes down here to blend out the lid. I topped it with a little bit of the Super Shock and then the purple shimmer on the lower lash line. So it's a really fun little palette. And last from Colourpop, I have the Garden Variety palette. Now this is one of their 15-pan palettes. Really pretty, really springy. I mean, even the packaging screams spring, but the green in here is beautiful. The kind of purpley shades. You have some pretty kind of salmony tone neutrals, some other warmer neutrals, a really light shade for me, which is a good transition shade. This is really pretty and really springy if you want something more neutral with a couple pops of color. All right, next up I have a couple palettes from Huda Beauty. So first is the Nude Light. Now these nude palettes, I also have the Nude Medium, which is beautiful, rich, warmer tone neutrals. But this one is very springy, just the light soft neutrals, some really soft pinks, that soft purple in there. These palettes from Huda, at least the nude ones, I love how they perform. A few of the other series, I didn't love them as much, but the nude ones are fantastic, and this is just a great little travel-friendly neutral, but with kind of some springy pops. kind of palette. And also from Huda, by far my favorite Huda palette is Mercury Retrograde. I mean, it's so pretty. You can get so much variety in this. I love kind of the peachy tones, the soft pinks. You have some neutrals. A lot of her neutrals do lean a little more pink, at least on me. Kind of these blue teal shades, some really beautiful shimmers. I've loved every look that I've made with this palette. I'm gonna swatch a few of these shimmers there. I don't know how well those will show up, but I have a few of those. They're just beautiful, beautiful shadows, and this is my #1 Huda palette for sure. From Anastasia Beverly Hills, I grabbed the Carli Bybel palette. Now this palette to me did not get the love that it deserved. I think it went on sale really quickly, but it is beautiful, soft neutral with some really springy pops of color. The mattes in here are great if you like the ABH formula. There's a lot of kick up, but it means that they're really blendable on the eyes, so I really like how ABH shadows perform. The shimmers are nice, not my favorite formula, but I absolutely love this palette, and I need to grab 4 more. So I'm definitely a matte shadow lover. I love my fun, like indie shimmers and things that are a little more unique, but I also love just good blendable colorful mattes. So I picked up the Natasha Denona Safari palette, which is all matte. And a lot of all matte palettes that you'll see are very like all neutrals. Well, this one has a lot of neutrals, but you also have some really fun pops of color. There's some kind of gray, blues, pinks, oranges, but they're really soft. Her shadows perform great, especially her mattes. And to me, you can just get a lot of really soft, springy looks with this. Not like overly bright and colorful, but just very soft and subtle, which I think is great for spring. Don't even know if this is still available, but it is pretty great. All right, I did grab one more ABH palette. This is from the Norvina collection. So this is the volume 4. It's the only one of these big palettes that I've picked up, and I'm really glad I did. I did wear a couple of the shades in this palette for my wedding, but just some really fun, bright pops of colors, some more pastel pops, but just really colorful and fun with really pretty. When I think spring, I think like pinks and yellows, and this palette definitely delivers. All right, from Kaleidos, I have the Lunar Lavender palette. So another just really pretty purpley lavender palette. The shimmers in here, I have to swatch them because they're really pretty. I don't know how well that'll show up on camera, but they are just really fun shimmers. The mattes perform great. I love Kaleidos shadows, but this is just really springy to me, like lavenders, purples. Beautiful. Okay, the last big palette I'm going to show today is from Glamlight, and it's the Glamlight Michaela palette. To me, this just screams spring. You do have some neutrals that are really kind of peachy leaning, but then you have some beautiful pastels and some bright shades. You have greens and pinks and purples and yellows. You can create so many spring leaning looks with this palette, especially if you like color, which I love a lot of color in my eyeshadow, and this palette performs beautifully. Just the variety is great, and beautiful for spring. I have one palette from Juvia's Place. Now, I think this one was discontinued. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it is the Deuce palette. I love Juvia's shadows. They perform great, but this is just so springy. You have that green shimmer, you have the pinks and the purples. What I like about the neutrals in here, you have these two, which are really true neutral. I love having something deep. I love having a lighter shade to blend things out. And these shimmers are super fun too, like just super springy colors with that light pink and the light green. If you ever find this available, I definitely recommend picking it up because it is amazing. Next up from BH Cosmetics, I have the Lost in LA palette. Now I have, I think, a total of 4 palettes in this format, the 16 pan, square pan palettes. They perform great. I think they're the best that BH has to offer. Anything else I've had from them I've decluttered, but the 16 pan, square pan palettes are amazing, and this is no exception. I created a lot of really fun, colorful, springy looks with this. The shimmers are okay, but the mattes are amazing. I love the colors, like the pretty peachy coral oranges, the blues and the purples, the greens. I mean, you have everything you need for spring in this palette. I have another all matte palette, and it is from Shad Cosmetics. This is the Creepy Cute palette. Now, this is just a nice little 8-pan palette. You have some really fun, colorful pastels, and then you have a gray and a black if you want to, you know, grunge things up, deepen things up. But these are some of the best pastel shades. They're super pigmented. You can really build them up over a tacky base. The only thing that's really missing for me is like a pastel yellow. I feel like I could have like done without the gray and had a yellow in there, but that's fine. I think this is a great palette. It's beautiful and it's just really fun. All right, and ending this list with probably my favorite spring palette. So this brand is one that has quickly become a favorite of mine in the last year. This is the first product that I picked up from them. and it is Black Moxie's Pastel Obsession. So it's a mostly matte palette, which is what I prefer. You do have this white shimmer and this kind of pinky shimmer. I don't love those shades, but the mattes are great. And then this shimmer up here, it's a multi-chrome, and I have a really big dip in that shade. I mean, it's just so pretty. And it's so shiny. I don't know how well that'll show on my camera with my lighting, but I've done just a ton of looks with this palette. Lots of variety. I love the kind of greeny shades, the periwinkle, the peachy shades. This palette is just fantastic and probably the most perfect spring palette that I've tried. Well, those are all of my favorite spring palettes. Let me know below if you would have picked any of these or if you have any to add that I did not include in my list today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.